welcome to Another Way podcast. It's been a while since I've broadcast live, so we're still here, we're still kicking, and I'm thrilled to be joined by David Quang Pham, again, a science-based musical theater composer, playwright, dramaturg, and a bunch of other things. So if you watch I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself in your own words, but I definitely recommend watching the first podcast that David was on because we do a very comprehensive job of kind of introducing him and his background. Would you like to kind of give us a little introduction to who you are today?
Yeah, I'm a science communicator and my vehicle is theater. So that's basically how I will encapsulate my multi-hyphenate, multi-dimensional self. And yeah, the last interview was from my home place in Michigan, where my parents from Vietnam are currently residing. And now I'm present in the Upper West Side of New York. And I just moved here in mid-March, around the Ides of March, basically. And
Shout out to all the Manhattanites.
Yes, I didn't think I would be here. I literally was supposed to be only here up till the end of March. And because Emileena and everyone here, I stayed.
Lots of support.
Yes. If it wasn't for all that Zooming I did, from the comforts of my home in Michigan, I would be here.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And we had the podcast about a year and a half ago, September 2021. Definitely check that out. And so it's been quite the year for you. So tell us about what it's been like to adjust to New York and to jump into the industry that is theater, right? Primarily is your industry, and this is like the theater capital or the theater mecca in theory of the world, at least one half of it. So yeah, tell us about your experience with that. I mean, you haven't even been here for the entire time, right?
Yeah, I haven't been here for a full year. I personally jumping in. The way I always put it is, this city fits my mania really well. It's just there's no space for it. A physical space. There are spaces as in social spaces. It's something where in Michigan, there was just abundance of physical space, but not a lot of social spaces as in there were people who were a master of something, let's say, more in that state, but not many jack of all trades. That's what I like about New York is everyone's experimenting, everyone's trying to find themselves, and that's who I am right now, all the time. And so it doesn't mean it's I will not master something. I mastered some new duality that was a duality, and I put them together, science and theater. So living in New York, I used to drive all the time, definitely. And I am now under the whims of the subway. You can tell, I don't have control of, my travels all the time. When I drive, it's okay, of course there's traffic, but I was just well, I can kind of speed a little bit or drive a little faster. But no, you're under the whims of two people in a subway car or a single person in a bus.
Yeah, when it comes.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
if it comes.
So my mania is I gotta get there. I'm always, being a now busy person in the theater industry, people are asking me to be dramaturg for this, stage manage this, be a composer. It's not I learned to say no, of course, but in New York you can see a show every day, a new show, a new story every single day. You can see something new every day. That's something I love about New York. I was so lucky if I was able to see one new thing in Michigan a month. So maybe that's why I'm having a hard time saying no.
Right.
It's I'm making up for all the lost time, I guess, in terms of upbringing compared to a lot of musical theater writers is, usually when people bring up something that made them who they are as musical writers, they always are when I was 6, I went to my first Broadway show, and then all of a sudden there's sporadic growth of inspiration, and then now I'm a musical composer and all that. But then I tell people like, no, actually my first Broadway show I've seen was the past year, at the age of 26.
Wow.
And it was Paradise Square.
Okay, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you, so what have you been seeing a lot of things?
Yes.
What has really inspired you? What has been the kind of your favorite thing that you've seen?
Oh my god, Oratorio for Living Things.
Is that the title?
Yes, Oratorio for Living Things.
Okay.
That's written by Heather Christians. It's
And where was it?
It was at Greenwich House.
Okay.
Yeah, it was West Village area. Basically, it was a church repurposed into a theater.
Nice. Very
And
New York.
it's literally Oratorio for Living Things. It's a universe in 90 minutes, which is just like my work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like choral, and it's all like the theater is kind of set up like we're sitting right here, but also mirrored. Like there's people sitting on the other side that's facing this
So
way.
it's 360.
Yes, 360, and people.
Here in the round.
Yes, and there was curtains around us, and actors coming from left and right, like singing all of a sudden.
Immersive.
Yes.
Yes. Cool. I love that.
Yep.
That's very much the new wave of theater that I've been really excited about for a while here is immersive theater. So that's very cool. So has your focus kind of changed? When you first came, you were focused on kind of your work as a musical playwright and a composer, and your dramaturgy. So are you still doing both of those? Or
I'm still doing both of those. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I started off. There were 3 factors that got me here. I guess, going chronologically instead of importance, really. Like, I was part of the Kennedy Center's BIPOC Critics Lab.
Cool.
So they had me. They had my first mission, which was to write commission.
Yeah.
I will say it's a mission personally.
Right.
My first mission
Yeah.
to write about Americano. Which was an off-Broadway show at New World Stages. And
fantastic!
And interview Carrie Lopez, Carrie Rodriguez. She was very inspirational and was like, "You got this. My kids would love to see your show." And I was just like, "I'm just gonna be a critic for right now. I think it'll take 7 years to build up my my musical theater background, writing background." And then my second thing I did that month was just did photography and was just going to sing a symphony for Portland, which was at 54 Below. It is written by Christina Hephill, and I got to see my first 54 Below show, and now pretty much I average once a week, like every 1 or 2 weeks, going to seeing that place, a new musical. And then my third, that's where dramaturgy happened. So I was the dramaturg for the industrial reading of Millennials Are Killing Musicals, written by Nico Juber and directed by Sierra Renee, which is also happening at Theater 71 in May. So check it out. And
we'll
drop
a link for that afterwards.
I got to be industrial reader the dramaturg for the industrial reading.
Industry reading.
Yes, basically there were just Broadway people working like as vocalists, and Sierra Renee, who was in Waitress.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like this was her first directing debut.
Nice.
So I was working with Broadway people. I was working with tie-ins, so it was a little daunting. But they were like, we'll just get a fresh perspective. One of the characters is Moon, and I was mostly in charge of just like, how do I use my science dramaturgy to help their character development?
Very
like
cool.
phases.
Very cool.
Yes.
So you still kind of have all your hands in all the fires. So to speak, right?
Yes.
So you haven't said no to anything.
Nah.
You're doing everything.
I
cool.
know. It's like going back to what I said. I am just basically, my mission is mostly science communication.
Got it.
Yes.
So however that fits around it.
And the vehicle is theater.
Got it. Awesome.
All that. Yes.
So to translate that into artist development language, right, which is kind of my domain, I would say that, kind of your science communication is like around your vision, right? So that's the part that is your that's where you're in alignment. Anything that's kind of anything that has to do with that. So when I talk to artists about vision work, I always say, don't limit it to one way of doing that, one vehicle, right? There's multiple vehicles to get your vision out there. And so that's exactly what you're doing, is you're finding all these different ways to kind of still align with what it is you're passionate about, which is very cool. Yeah, awesome. So let's talk a little bit about, now you just had a big industry reading, so less than a year, and David already had a sold out industry reading in a 99-seat theater, which is incredible. And there's so many things about this industry reading that inspired me that I want to talk about. So this was for his show Ellipses, which last time when he was on the podcast, he had just finished a virtual industry reading for that, which was also like huge. There was a ton of people at that too. So I'm not the only one following David, by the way, but so this industry reading, there's so many things about this version specifically that really inspired me. First of all, I have to say that I really appreciate the changes you made. I think you're moving in the right direction, 100%. One thing that I will highlight is that you cut it by a lot, maybe by like in half, maybe, or at least a third.
Yeah, I the you part is stretch. It's the team.
It's the team, right?
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
collectively.
So
it's like,
your team, right?
Yeah, sometimes
I appreciate that about
I
David,
cut it willingly, and then sometimes I cut it half willingly.
Got it. But theater's all about collaboration.
Yeah.
You
don't write yourself.
Exactly.
You actually honestly don't. That's something I learned a lot.
Yeah, and that's kind of true with almost every art form. It really takes a team to get, even if you're alone incubating it, like a writer might be at the computer alone, but getting it out there really takes a team. So thank you for acknowledging that. But I just wanted to say about the cutting, so many playwrights have a hard time with cutting.
Yeah.
That is the hard part. And it's the same thing for, again, any artist, like with musicians. It's like, when is the song done? For for songwriters. So it's like, when is your piece of work done? That is the artwork, right? That's kind of the challenge of it. So kudos to that for actually taking that step. It was paid. And so I had a lot of issues going into this as an old school, I have to say, theater person in New York who's not accustomed to paid readings. And if you're listening to this, I'd love to hear your comments about this, because so I've been in New York for almost 20 years, and I've gone to several industry readings that have always been free. And usually it's, the people asking us to come as industry people to get our feedback and hopefully to find an investor to take it forward, right? So that's what I've kind of was taught or learned that an industry reading was. So when David mentioned kind of off the cuff that there were tickets being sold to this, I kind of grilled you on that, and I was hesitant about it. But I have to say, after attending the show, I'm totally sold, because I think it is very much another way moving forward, and it's kind of acknowledging the changing atmosphere and economy and environment that we're in. So I want to speak to you. I want to ask you about that. First off, is like, how conscious were you that it was a departure from what has been, and what were your thoughts around that?
I mean, yeah, to be fair, I really acknowledge that, I don't think stage readings, when we were talking about it, should be cost much at all. But that's because, even I didn't know the scope of what J. Michaels, C. Bordone, and, Simon and the producers, J-Mo, was going to do. I was like...
So these are the producers and the director. Okay.
Yeah, it was choreograph. Oh, of course. Yeah, a little more... Oh, yes, paying the actors. The ticket sales. Yes, all the ticket sales go to them. So, that's a standard where I'm I'm helping the little guys.
I see. So your understanding was that the money that was being made from the ticket sales was going basically straight to the actors and the theater rental and things like that.
Yeah, usually the reason I want stage readings to be not costly, as in tickets wise, for people to be accessible, is I was in that camp of just I wouldn't be able to afford this. It's also much of it was thinking nationally, so you brought up the Zoom reading, so it's of course I'm not going to charge $5-10. It's pocket change in New York, honestly. Something I find out also from in New York is it may cost a lot, but you can make a lot too. My standards in Michigan was
money comes in and out. Yeah. That is so true.
Yes, that's the thing. That's the thing. If I was in Michigan, it was I'm not affording $30 tickets, but I'm in New York. Suddenly I make this money. I'm
Yeah.
like, I can afford it.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize that's the standard that changed now.
Yeah,
Like, when I
interesting.
come back home, it's, like, hello, I make so-and-so, and then they're like, what? I'm a civil engineer. Yeah, but going back to the reading and the cost, like, basically, yeah, the standard, I think, should be like that. When, like, tickets for, off-Broadway shows are $60, $70, and, like, stage readings, well, that was the hardest thing, was I don't know whether to call it a stage reading, and then you said industry reading, which helps a lot. But, like...
Well, I mean, my understanding is that usually the staged readings were industry readings. Like,
Yes.
And maybe my understanding is incorrect, too.
No,
I mean, I think there's a lot of theater people watching this, so, again, please drop your comments. But, yeah, I mean, to me, they were kind of one and the same.
Yeah, no, it's like, now I'm like, oh, it definitely sounds a little professional, as in, like, there's more... So, what's different about this... versus a standard stage reading is there's choreography, so people actually moved.
True, yes.
People danced. People, of course, have behind his hand, but they
were still on book. Yeah.
Yes, they danced. That's what still gave that name of stage readings. They are still on book. And then there were makeup. Like there
was some tech involved.
Yeah, some costuming. Some so it's not a standard stand up, stand down, seat.
Well, I mean, a staged reading can have all of adds aspects of those.
I've seen it
before
too.
Yeah. But I mean, to me, the difference was like if you're trying to attract industry, and it feels to me that maybe this was more than just attracting industry.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there were industry tickets, so as in like people who. Bloggers, reviewers were given those.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so
which is interesting though. Reviewers for staged reading. I mean, I have to say again,
yes.
and from my like old timey ways, like the reviewers were never invited to stage readings. So that in and of itself, I think, is pretty remarkable. But there are bloggers. It's not like the New York Times was coming, right?
No. Like New York Times is way down the line.
Yeah, right.
But like, I want to thank first of all Angela, like Teresa Ejik, for reviewing our show like the past weekend. So
nice.
thank you.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
It's on Words for Culture.
Okay,
like they most of the time interview independent art.
Okay,
so
great.
Yes, and the things that she brought up were like, the message is everything's family. The universe is familial. And that's like, when she came out, it's like, correct. Like, well, not correct, but you can take it any way you want. No such thing as correct.
Right.
But, and then, of course, the performers, that's what she brought up. Like, the performers were just excellent.
Yeah.
They were having fun, and you could tell that they were actually having fun.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm very proud of, is, like, in the show. Yeah, 3 of them came and like up and was like, this is the most fun I've had in years. And then one of them even posted like, this is the most fun I've had in years.
Nice. And you got 2 TikTokers. He got TikTok videos, which is really exciting.
Learn with Manka and Laura, what was it? Something with a monster mash. Like, I'm butchering it, but I'll put it in the chat later.
Yeah, we can put the comments.
Yeah, science communicators.
Right, which is great. So it seems to me, I mean, again, part of this, another way, I would say, of this quote-unquote industry staged reading is that it's not just for investors, which I think in the past, that's been the primary focus, is for investors and other producers to get their feedback. And while I think you were certainly open to that, and you certainly invited, and also David was not the producer, I should add. Right, you were just a playwright, right? Which is great. Yes. Yeah, there was another producer.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, and it was part of a festival, right?
Yes.
And was this Working Title? What was the name of the? No, what's the
Milky
name of
Way.
the Milky Way Theater Company, right?
Perfect, namesake.
Yeah, apropos. So you know, it was much more than what I think it used to be, and I do think the tech and the cool, the costumes and the makeup and the movement, and also I will just note, because you brought it up, that it does seem like this show is so much more than just a show. It is a community.
Yes. And,
like the TikTokers mentioned, I love science, and here's somebody putting science on stage, something like that,
yes.
And so, and I feel, and then after the reading, David took a video of everybody just kind of jumping around on stage, and the audience kind of jumping in on this like chant of, that makes sense when you see the show, and it seemed really, again, just so much more than just I mean, it wasn't opening night, it wasn't closing night. It was just like a step in your journey. And from a development point of view, I love seeing that because I feel like I've been brought in to the journey.
Yes, definitely. Like, there was a lot of engagement, and people under their breaths have said force. Which, okay, I guess I just make the dogs in the show say that.
Force, because he's gravity, he is a force.
Force.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
So
it's cute. I mean, you even have a chant. I mean, the show is so marketable. Like, you could do merch for this. Yeah. You could easily have the most adorable merch for this. A little dog gravity,
a little Milky Way.
A little Milky Way. Yeah, it would be great. So yeah, I mean, it just seems like the show is a phenomenon, and it's so much more.
The proudest thing I have is like, I hope it's like a dream I have for the show is. It is adapted in many ways later. As in, I don't want necessarily something to own it. As in, like, it's kind of lives on kind of like Odyssey. You know, like, it's adapted in so many different ways. Wow, this
At
is
the
the
core
origin.
is a journey, but the journey evolves.
Yes.
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
how people, of course, like, and the proudest thing is its first origin of the story is it's musical theater.
Right.
Much of the time, musical theater is adapted from something else.
Right.
And I want it to be the origin. Like, it's
cool.
That's the first thing it was.
Oh,
it's a musical.
I see, but people could adapt it into, like,
yes.
the whole universe. You know, like, it's reminiscent to me of, like, the Magic Gathering card series, where people could role play in this, you know? Or it could also be compared, I think, to, like, the Marvel universe, where you've got these kind of, you know, like, each character, which is a galaxy, basically, right? Or something thereof, could be, they could each have their own storyline, easily.
Yes.
You know? So, yeah, that's really exciting for musical theater, that you want it to start here and then go off.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, again, is such another way. Hashtag. Do you understand yet why I love David? And why I want to bring him on the podcast and keep hearing about this journey, because this is so intriguing. I wanted to ask you about the sound, because you said you had a very specific kind of vision for the sound and that. Could you tell us about that?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it is the way I can encompass, like, the general genre of the piece is chronologically, it follows kind of how the universe begins before the universe, then how it begins, and then it expands. So before, it's Ziku, it's a Chinese opera style, like before the inciting incident of Big Bang. It's just to emphasize that things are traditional, things are what they are before time existed. This is old-sounding music. It's played by the Yaoquin or some old guitar, like the moon guitar, and then the lead character protagonist HD1 is like, I gotta leave. And that's when pop is exposed a little bit, some new sound, which is like the modern sound that we have, you know. And then the Big Bang, which is all punk rock, and then much of the time afterwards, it's the characters taking that old traditional sound and transferring it into popish sound. I guess, for the instrumentation, I like to thank, Simon Broke, who is a Columbia University graduate who helped orchestrate all this. So basically, he was the genius that helped make it sound more orbital when I'm okay, I'm stuck here. Use your magical hands and play on the piano. What orbits sound like?
Right.
It's like, okay, no, slower.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
And in terms of instrumentation for the industry reading, there were 4 major players: the pianist, the percussionist, the guitarist, and the violinist. And then they played instruments from the piano, of course, guitar, violin, drums, mandolin, the bass guitar, the yaoquin, ancient Chinese instrument. So the violinist played that. I've spoken about this before to the music director in terms of I'm a trombonist. That's how I write my melodies a lot of times. It's the closest to it, human voice personally, and I've decided to step away and just write it more of based on string, because that's how I just perceive science right there.
Strings. Oh,
and I like the trombone sound because it has the heroism in it. But that's because it's something ingrained in me from all the media I watch. It's like anything heroic that happens, the brass is played, obviously. So I'm like, oh, let's just try to make heroism sounds from string instruments.
Cool.
Like, let's change the way people think of these characters' actions and see if when a hero does something malicious, let's not have the strings, which is, violin, like, yeah, or something. Like, let's have, like, a nice snare or something.
Yeah, I love that, because the other thing that we talked about, and even in terms of the sound design, in terms of the tech sound, is that the world of your play is not the world we know. Right? And so it makes sense that you're going away from tradition, because you're trying to create this world, which is the universe, by the way, in which we're just so minuscule. And, I suppose maybe astronauts might know that world better than we do, people who've spent time in space, But yeah, it's it's so foreign to us. So the direction and the choices you make to go kind of non-traditional and different is very remarkable in relation to that.
I mean, in the words of David Bowie, changes. Yes, an inspiration. Like, he who writes a lot of music that focuses on space oddities and stuff.
Yeah,
so it's like,
exactly.
Yes, and you're right. Like, astronauts. Let's see, Chris Hadfield, like, is a guitarist. So it's just like he has a different perspective from being in a vacuum, just like hearing like nothing. Or hearing white noise of, like, machinery, of course, but, like...
Right.
Like, like, the beauty of writing music in space. I wonder. That is also a bucket list. Like, literally make enough money from this and just be a space tourist for 10 minutes. To
check it out. Because, it just sound, and let alone music, just sounds so different when it's in a vacuum, like you said. Yeah, fascinating. The other thing I really wanted to talk about in terms of the play that you did is you made a choice to have all the characters, speaking of the fact that, we're out in this place that's so unknowable to most of us, that they're all genderless. Right? So they're all non-binary. Which I thought was a really cool move for so many reasons. First off, somebody in the audience said to me, when I asked them what they thought of the show, they said it's so refreshing to see templates of characters being made that are non-binary. Because it's inclusive. And so tell me your thoughts around that. That was really cool.
Absolutely. Like, basically... it does fit the form of how galaxies are. I'm just like, okay, so the story is about singularity, and there's 6 kids who are named after real galaxies, and like everything in the universe is the children of singularity, let's say, and they all are in different shapes and sizes, colors, looks, so it all makes sense that there's no like gender, race, or any identity really attached to them. It's always fun to just like have these bigger puzzle pieces to have. Like these different puzzle pieces. Like, oh, let's have a dynamic between Singularity and HD1, the oldest child. Let's have 2 years ago it was a mother-daughter dynamic. Now it's a father-son dynamic.
Oh, interesting.
So the feedback is so much also cooler and different. It's like, oh yes, I just relate to the father-son dynamic, and then 2 years before that, it's like I relate to the mother-daughter dynamic. And then
so many different directions.
Yes, sometimes even Singular's parents was they were 2 fathers 2 years ago, and now it is a traditional like mother-father dynamic, and then it's like, oh, I get this type of feedback now, like, oh, this person's like my father, this person's like my mother, and that's what I kind of want to bring about science. I guess in terms of even down the line, a lot of times the inaugural cast is the thing that like makes the following cast for a lot of shows. So like but
you're changing it up. You're already changing it up. So that's cool.
Like the thing that happens a lot of times is like, even though a show maybe 5 years down the line is well-intentioned, they're like, we'll change the gender than what it was traditionally. People are now already associated with that. Like exactly. Now it's like...
I know, it's true. So they're all, their pronouns are they, them. Right, which is also just, I appreciate, again, being from an older, old-timey, if you will, generation, it's just really helpful to be hearing those pronouns in use, you know, and to get comfortable with that. Like it, I just really appreciate it. And it makes sense to me because now Milky Way is the one that we're like, besides gravity, I guess, like we're the closest to, if you will. Right?
Yeah,
we're
obvious reason.
And so I liked that it was non-binary though, because to me there's so much, especially right now when gender is, you know, if you're watching this from like 10 years from now, maybe it won't be as charged an issue as it is right now. But, you know, if you had made it female, there's a lot that goes into that right now.
Yeah.
We're so conscious of what it is to be female and what it's not to be female, you know? And then same with male. It's like there's a lot that connotations and feelings and emotions that we attach to that. So the fact that you can take that away, which I think is so important with a character like Milky Way, who doesn't actually have a gender. So it's like you're not placing those connotations on it. You're leaving it open for the audience to relate in a way that makes sense for them.
Absolutely. And like the hardest thing was like writing Milky Way is like, oh yeah, puberty is different between the multiple genders, but like it gave me a challenge to write very generally. Mm-hmm. Like, oh,
and to
this
distill down the parts that we all have the same.
Yeah, like, everyone like changes their voice over time.
Right.
Like, no matter what, puberty. So it's like Milky Way doesn't have to lower raise. It's like they either. Like, they change their voice at this point. Mm-hmm. They have hair growing in different places. Mm-hmm. They get wrinkly skin like everyone.
Right.
Like, it's just like, oh, whatever actor plays that role is, it's relatable and they can find entry point. The funnest thing was the collaboration between Jay Michaels and C. Bordone.
Who's the director.
Yeah,
and C. Bordone was
assistant director. Yes. And C is non-binary.
Got it.
And Jay is like old... like sometimes stuck in the old ways, but they really collaborated together. And I remember him like emphasizing, "You're a day, you're out there. Please stand out now, day, because everyone's a day. You gotta find another way to stand out.
Right.
You gotta find another way to stand out." And then all the cast was like, "Oh yeah, I'm this planet with this shape and whatever. I don't have any gender attached to me. I'm not human in a way. I'm half human. I'm like I'm human, as in like, I mean, gender's a construct really. So it's it's kind of funny like how we compartmentalize ourselves. Let's say a lot.
Yeah.
It's like if we don't compartmentalize ourselves and just like be able to, you know, do what we want, play any sport we want, join any club we want. Mm-hmm. How wonderful would the world be?
Yeah,
like, if girls can play football, or you know, like guys can play volleyball, like like you know, without like any gender, like
just people.
And maybe I just unintentionally remember like the sport I ran was cross country, like, and there was a boys and girls like cross country, but like much of the time we ran together and there was no separate team. It's just like that probably helped, and a lot of like people in that sport was non-binary. So it was like, and they came in all sexuality. So it's like that probably informed me there. Right. And yeah, my field definitely of astronomy was very progressive. Yeah. We didn't care.
True, that makes sense.
Really, we didn't mind at all. Like, use any bathroom you want. You know, just do your calculus homework.
Nice.
And just
Well, I love it. One thing I wanted to mention too was that last time we were calling you a musical theater disruptor. If you remember that was we were really excited about kind of that label for you. You know, whatever a label is. And I think you have really come a long way in that. Like, you still are very much disrupting, I think, traditional theater, which is part of what makes it another way, I think. And so I'm just curious if you feel, you know, identified with that at all.
The funniest thing, I think, if I remember correctly, was I was like, yeah, I'm up for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I totally forgot from that interview up to this point. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even have to try.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't even it was just like, whatever, I did it. And now it's like people are kind of asking me like, reaching out, especially like, how did you get this produced? Whoa, you worked with 17 performers. Yeah. What in the world? Full pit band. And it's like, and it's like, I don't know, try something new.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just stay present and open to the
present.
opportunities that are all around you.
Yes, be open to new things.
Yes.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I never intentionally was like disrupting, but
Yeah,
like
right,
it
got
was
it.
just like, I'll just live day by day, and I'm just gonna happen to disrupt it because I'm like, I want to make life fun for people.
Well, interesting. I mean, I do think that this concept of disrupting was very hot, and that word was very hot a few years ago. And I wonder if, again, I'm dating. I mean, I feel like maybe it's a millennial thing that was like disrupting was all the big rage, and now I feel like we are all just disruptor. You know what I mean? I feel like that the power of that word is maybe kind of, it's not as hot anymore. I mean, I don't know if there's a new word to replace it or if there just is people being people. You know what I mean? And I think we've embraced a little bit more the idea of disrupting, whereas I think before when it was a hot word, it was different, which is why we recognized it, you know, and now I feel like, well, anyone who's doing their own thing, anyone who's following their authentic another way, right, is disrupting the tradition in that regard, just because they're finding their own path, I guess. So, yeah, interesting. Maybe I'll have to retire that word.
It is a product of like the pandemic, especially. Yeah, like
totally.
It's a disruptor in itself, and people like who decide to try new things did, and that's why there were so many disruptors. Yeah,
exactly. I 100% agree. I think that's around the time that word kind of started. Falling out. So thank you so much for coming back. If you want more of David Quang Pham, we have a weekly conversation where we just identify a duality in pop culture and we just explore it together. And in interest of finding balance. It's called Finding Balance, a series of conversations. And, you know, I think David and I are a very interesting balance in and of ourselves. You know, David definitely brings this science perspective, which is so grounding. And I think maybe I'm sometimes a little bit more up in the clouds. And you have, you know, but together we find a really great balance. So it's worth checking it out. So we'll drop a link for that. We talk a lot about tech and AI and...
Oh yeah, it's how I got my dualities in like check, I guess, for my work.
Oh, great.
So it's finding balance even like personally helped.
Yeah,
in the past years.
Oh, good. Yeah, and actually one thing I noticed when I watched our original interview is you talk about the liminal space.
Yeah.
Which we had a whole conversation about liminal spaces. And I think I didn't quite understand what that was yet, even though I think in some ways you had introduced me to it, and I didn't even give you credit for it because I didn't recognize that I'd heard it before. And that's one of the amazing things about Ellipses, your show, is there's a lot of concepts in there. There's a lot of science concepts, but that we talked also last time about the idea that quantum physics kind of borders on, if not is, philosophy, right? So a lot of those ideas extend beyond there. So, you know, I think I've gotten a lot from you as well, too. I mean, I love that word now, by the way, liminal. It's a great word. If you don't know it, you can learn a lot.
Don't limit yourself.
That show. Yeah, exactly.
To liminality.
Yeah. So, word. So any final comments from you? Like, what are you working on? Do you want to plug anything? Do you want to promo anything?
I'm working on sleep. I tell myself that. Yes, I am in a liminal space of unconscious and conscious. Like, I'm always a dreamer. Like, but you stay grounded. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I guess like the upcoming work I have is I'm stage managing for a show in Brooklyn called Bass, and that is written by my mentor Janelle Lawrence and their friend Sugar Banti. So, come check us out on in February 19, 21, 23, and 25.
Great. Cool. I mean, I think that's definitely one thing that I admire about you, too, and what I do think keeps you grounded is that you never forget who you're working with and who's helping you get to where you are going. You very much pull the community with you, whatever community that is that you're in, with you along the way, and I think that's really awesome and admirable. And then also the fact that you're just doing so much also I think keeps you grounded, like stage managing, you know.
Yes.
I mean, I know how many playwrights do you know out there who would, you know, have this huge sold out industry reading and then stage manage like the next month. Like, I think that's pretty admirable as well. So thank you again, and thank you for tuning in, and just a reminder that there is always another way.